Everyone, welcome back to my channel. So for today I am using the Perfectly Wicked add-on, the Perfectly Wicked stamp set. Obviously the add-on is also a stamp set. I'm also going to use the Build a Campsite from Fawn. These are all Fawn products today. I also am using the Shadowbox card spring add-on. I believe it's the spring one that I'm using here. It could be the other one, the park, but basically I'm using the trees. And I've got the pivot pop-up interactive card dies, and I also used the stitched borders for one of the panels just so that it made it look like the large stitched rectangle, which is the main one that I'm using on the front of the card. I needed the one on the inside to be a little bit smaller, so I trimmed it down and then added the stitching back in, just so that it fit better inside the card. So to start with, I've got my this is I just used some sort of stick, I think it's called Sticks to it's kind of like a temporary adhesive sheet that you can get, and that I just have used for many years. You've seen that in many videos and it's still going, and I use that to create a moon mask almost, and that's what I want to try and create here, is a moon. So I'm going to start off, I'm using all my distressings, the regular distressings, so not the oxides, and I'm going to start with some tumbled glass around the outer edge of the moon, and that just is going to help highlight that moon and make it almost look like it's shining. That's the idea anyway. So we're starting with the lightest color around the moon, and then I will go on to Salty Ocean to get a bit more intense color. And once I've done the Salty Ocean, I will move on to Faded Jeans, I believe, for the next darkest color around that edge. And once I've done that, I will then get Black Soot around the edge just to deepen and darken that edge and make it look like a night sky, which is what we want. So that's the aim of it. And then just going back between each color to sort of blend out and keep blending until we get those colors to sort of blend nicely. I don't think I could say blend anymore. And once I've done that, then like I say, I'll bring in some Black Soot just around the outer edge, just to deepen and darken that, and just it helps to create that illusion of the moon shining in the center there, and you'll see that when we take that off. Now I didn't have a separate I didn't cut any separate dies or pieces for the ground, so I'm just going to use some greens to create that. But before I do that, I'm going to finish using all the blues that I want to use on all the different panels, because I wanted the similar thing on the inside as well. So to start with, this is the smaller panel that I've created for the inside, and I'm using the tumbled glass from the bottom up, because the bottom edge is going to be the lightest edge, like where the lighter edge of the sky is going to come from. It'll make sense in a minute. And then I'll go in with my Salty Ocean again and add that color into the next, sort of as it's going up the panel, and then I'll bring in the Faded Jeans again and help to drag that down into the Salty Ocean, and again go back and forth until those colors are blended nicely. So just going back and forth on them. And I think my tumbled glass is a little bit on the dry side. It was one of the first ones I ever bought. And again, using the Black Soot just along that top edge to again give it more of a night sky look. And then for my two pieces, these are the two main pieces that are going to pop out on the pivot pop-up, and I needed to just check which edge I needed that blue, of the lightest blue, so the tumbled glass, to come down from. The bottom edge is going to be the ground, if you like, and we'll colour those in or ink those in a minute. But I needed that lightest colour to come down on those two pieces so that when you open it, that's still part of that background. If that made any sense. Hopefully when we put this together it'll make more sense. So I just coloured from the top down, kind of like an ombre, just with the tumbled glass. I didn't use any other colour. And then I'm going to go in with Twisted Citron and Mowed Lawn for my grassy areas. And just grabbing the little sponges that I need for the dauber things, whatever they're called. And using the little handles from Tim Holtz. So I thought I'd go with this instead of the blending brushes today. So I wanted more intense colour. So putting the Twisted Citron along the edge, bottom edge, up to that skyline, if you like, or horizon, I can't talk, horizon, and then bringing in some Mowed Lawn just along that bottom edge, and again using, well not again, I'm using some hickory smoke instead of black soot along that bottom edge, again just to show it as a, oh I do bring in black soot, just to show it as kind of a night sky and a night, like where the grass, you know, it's obviously going to be a darker shade of green, not going to be bright green. And then I'm going to do the exact same thing. These are the two pieces that will go on the inside of the pop-up, and so I want them to be the same colours of green for the grassy areas. So started with my Mowed Lawn, the bottom edge where the stitching isn't, or where it doesn't curve, so the straight edge is the bottom of what will fit on the base of the piece that goes in the pop-up centre. So coming in with the Mowed Lawn and then some hickory smoke, and again with the black soot, I believe, yes. So bringing those in, and then it just gives it that sort of more nighttime look to your grass, rather than it being a bright green, although that does make for a nice Halloweeny kind of sky if you wanted to do a green sky. So then I've got the two trees from, I want to say it's the spring add-on, it might be the park one from the shadow box, and I'm using some brushed corduroy and then some walnut stain to darken the base of the tree. So very easy blending as well. The cardstock I'm using, I don't think I mentioned that, the cardstock I'm using is a Canson Bristol something. It's not actually meant for inking and blending like the Strathmore Bristol Smooth, but it actually works really well, and it works nicely with Copic markers, alcohol markers as well, which is what I coloured all the images in with. So for my moon, I've taken the mask off and I'm using pumice stone. I thought there was a nice moony colour, and just kind of getting it on the more in the center than the outside edge, just so that again that moon looks like it's glowing, and that it's nice and bright. And then spritzing everything, of course, with some water to create some extra texture and extra interest, and especially on the moon, because the moon will give it those sort of divots and things that you see on the moon. And then again on the inside pieces as well, just for some extra fun. So getting those all spritzed, and now is the fun bit. I decided to start, I had an idea of how I wanted to lay them out. So before I actually start putting these pieces together, I decided on the two sentiments. I wanted one on the inside, and one that will go on the outside. The one on the inside was kind of like, because it kind of needed something else in that background. I could have added trees, I could have added loads of other things, but because the moon is kind of on the outside as the main backdrop or background, I wanted just something on the inside extra. So on the front it will say no tricks, just treats, and on the inside it will say hope your Halloween is perfect, because it's a whole bunch of cat witches like you do. So like I said, I stamped and coloured all these images with that same Bristol Canson Bristol paper. And then I used my scan and cut once I'd coloured all the images in to cut them out. And I got to say, all of it worked really well. Takes a bit more with the blending to get the hang of that and to get it blended really nicely. But the Copic colouring or the alcohol marker colouring on it worked really well. So I'm quite impressed, and it cut out really beautifully as well. So I'm going to start with the inside piece. So this is my background for the inside, just using some wet adhesive. And it's going on the inside back. So this is an A2 size card. So this is 8.5 by 5.5, scored at 4 1/4. And so this is sort of the landscape version of this card. And so I'm just sticking that background in with the lightest part at the base, which is also another reason for my sentiment on. I'd remember which way up this thing went. But I put that on the back panel. And then these two little guys, you have to fold them in half, kind of like a little book, and then fold the tab the opposite way. And what you'll do, and that's the way it'll fold in there to create the pop-up part. But what you'll do is then kind of link them like so once you've taken your tape off, and then line them up and just stick them together, and then they kind of concertina into a little, it looks like a little book to me, but they sort of concertina, and that's how you need them to fold so that they'll pop out nicely. And this does take a little bit of work. You need to keep playing with it to get it to open and close and pop out the way that it should. So it just takes a bit of getting used to. So this is the main pop-up piece. So you'll fold it in half on the score line and then fold it across each diagonal, and then you kind of push it in the middle so that it folds into this sort of giant fat arrow. And then you want on the triangular pieces is where you want your tape, and also on the opposite side you'll want there is a score line that you can see in real life on those blocks on the either end, and those are the pieces that are actually going to hold it in place. So what you first do is you take off, I'm going to start with the bottom, so the base of the card. So I'm taking off all the tape on one of those little arrows. So I know that triangle is going to go on the base of the card. You're then going to use the little circle that's in the middle as a guide, and that you're going to look through and find your score line, and then you're going to line that up along and in the center of that, and use the score line on the mechanism to line it up across the score line of your card, and sort of centralize it so that it's even on both sides as well. And then you're going to press down that triangle. Easy, right? And then I just burnished it a bit. And then what you're going to do is you're going to fold it back into its little arrow shape. Take off the second lot of tape on the second, like on the other triangle area, and then you're going to close the card on itself, and that will actually put that together for you. So you hold that bottom piece in place and then just fold it on itself and just give it a burnish, and that then creates the pop out, like the main mechanism for it. Then what you want to do is take the tape off those two blocks on the end, and what we'll do is we'll take the center. There are little markings, so in the middle of those two main triangles that we've just stuck down, there's actually little markings that are sort of line up with this circle in the middle, and you're going to line those little markings up with the center of this pop out panels, the ones that we've just put together. So you'll line those up on the center of that, and then once you've lined that up, and you can see it better in real life as opposed to on camera, once you've lined them up, you're then just going to squash that flat, and it will stick those two end panels to the where you've taken the tape off. So I hope that made some sense. And then you're going to fold it and then just keep playing with it. And there's your pop out. So you do have to play with it quite a bit just to get it to do what you kind of like train the paper to do what you want it to do. But it's so cool. Once you've done that, then you can start putting everything together. It's that easy. So I can't remember if I did the inside. No, I think I did the outside first. No, I did the inside first. So then we're going to take those green hills that we've inked, and we're going to start to put this together. I will speed through some of this for you so that you know, because this is the bit that makes it into a little storybook, and this is the fun part. This is where you get to tell the little story about what these witches are doing. They're cooking up all these brews and these potions and lotions and things, and that's what they're doing. That's what we're going to tell ourselves. Right, so these two pieces actually have a score line in the middle, which lines up with the scores of the center of each half of this. Now I probably should have stuck this slightly differently. I didn't score this first one, so it does stick a little weird, but I get it to work. And so the second one I will actually fold in half first, and then and you fold it towards yourself so that the crease goes into the fold line will go inside the score line or fold line that's on your back panel. And so I should have done that with the other one, but yeah, it don't matter. I haven't made one of these for so long. So getting those stuck in there, and then I will start to get all the little pieces stuck together and put in place. Oh, and my cat decided to say hello. That was Gizmo, by the way. He decided to say hello. So now I'm going to speed through and just add all these different pieces. So for the trees, I used them on the edges so that I could just create again like a little forest scene. So they were massive compared to this inside panel, but I stuck them up in the corner and along the right and left hand edge, and then the bottom I will just trim off and round those corners again, and that just works really nicely. I just thought it added something to that inside, so it looks like we've got a little forest going on there. So I'll get those stuck in, and then once they're a little bit dry I can take off the, trim off the excess, because otherwise it just looks kind of weird there. So, this is where I think it might have been easier to do this bit before I actually stuck this piece into the pop-up, the pivot mechanism. It would have been easier to stick the trees and the hills on, but we're just going with it. That's what we're going to do. And then like I say, I'm going to start to add these little guys. I had a rough idea of where I wanted to put everybody. So we'll just start to add in my little cauldrons. I think that's what I'm doing first. Let's have a look. Yeah, and the inside pop-up, you need to make sure that everything, there's no dimension on it, because you need it to fold. Think about it, the inside of your card's already got this pop-out mechanism. So if you add dimension to the images, it's going to add more bulk to the inside of your card. So on the inside, make sure that everything is stuck flat, as opposed to having, pop them up with pop dots or whatever. And also what I was aware of and quite careful to not do is like line things up over the score lines, because you either need to score those images, in half or where that score line is, or it will just create this weird fold in the thing that you're trying to stick down. So it could be the cat or the hat or the books or whatever it is. And so I did try and there were a few things I had to move so that I could actually get them to fit in the whole scene but not be in those creases, so I wouldn't have to, it create a funny line within the image, and I didn't want that. So I just made sure that they lined up right close to that score line but not over that score line, so that they didn't get folded themselves. even down to like the spoon. I had to change the direction that she was using the spoon because I suddenly realized I'll have to fold it in half. So which you can do, but I just think it looks neater and just looks nicer if you don't have a score line right in the middle of the a spoon or something. So I think it still worked out all right. So getting my little cats on. Every cat's going to have a hat, of course. And there are 3 cauldrons. I decided all the bits that are in the cauldrons are all separate stamps. So there's one cauldron and then you add whatever you want to it. So I created the 3 different cauldrons with their various potions and lotions and things in them. And goop. I don't know what else you want to call it. And so I was quite impressed when I went to cut these out, especially that one on the left, the purple one with the like sparkly stuff coming out of it. I was quite impressed with the machine, with my scanning cut, because I drew a couple of lines to sort of join, for want of a better word, with pencil, the sparkly things that are coming out, the fumes or whatever you want to call them. And I just kind of joined those lightly with pencil, and it's kind of like it knew that was the outline of it. So it cut round that. So I actually created that whole thing in one piece. I didn't have to cut or die cut separate pieces or, hand cut it or anything. I managed to get my machine to do it for me, which is great because that saves me a lot of time. And now I've got these are the little, what are they called? Lanterns from the campsite die set. So I just used a couple of pieces of cardstock to sort of make the what's it called, the flame on the inside of the little lanterns, and then just added a couple of those in. So kind of mixing stamped images with die cut images is always a nice thing, I think, to try and do, especially if you've got scenes that you like to build and that it's sort of mixing and matching all these different things that you can incorporate together. And then of course there's the potion bottles, and the potion bottles have blank labels, so you can either write your own labels, or there's a few stamps in there. So you've got like, I can't even read that, frog's breath and bat wings and stuff like that. So I thought it was funny. And I did stamp and colour and cut more than I needed. I always say that, always do that, so that when you're in the middle of a project, you don't want to run out of things. If you suddenly think, oh, I needed more books, or I needed more crystals, or whatever it is, depending on the stamp set, of course, then the last thing you want to do is run out of those while you're in the middle of your project. So that's the inside. And then for the outside, I decided this is where I can add some dimension. So I've got my base of my tent from the campsite die set. I've got the base of that cut out and stuck flat to the background. And then I decided roughly where I wanted my cauldron of worms to be. And this one cat, I decided I wanted him coming out from behind the tent, but of course I stuck the tent down before I put him on, so I had to cut him in half, but no animals were harmed. So he's going to come out from behind the tent, and I'm going to add some extra dimension to the tent, and I'm adding some dimension to this front kitten who's having playing with the worms, and so it gives a bit of depth. So the cauldron's slightly behind her, so her and the chair are on some pop dots. And then inside the tent I wanted to add another one of the little kittens. There's 2 that are sort of a little smaller than the other 3, and I wanted to add one of them in the inside, like she's spellcasting on the inside of the tent. I thought that was cute. And so I added them in, and the book and the crystal and everything in there first, and then I'm going to add some pop dots, dimensions, whatever you want to call them, to the tent. Like there's 3 parts to the tent, which is very cool. Actually there's 4 parts, but we'll get to that in a minute. And so this first piece I decided to layer with some dimension, and then again it gives some depth, like you can go into the tent. That's the idea. And then there's another layer that goes on the front, which is kind of like I don't know if this is the right word, but like the swag. Is that it? You know, like the opening of the tent, kind of like what would be the colour of the inside of the tent. I don't know what that is. So that's on there. And then the fourth piece for the tent is the little pegs. You even get little tent pegs. So I decided I needed to add them in because it just made sense. I have no idea if I put them in the right place because God knows when last I went camping. But anyway, they're on there. And so now I can stick my little cat that's jumping out from behind the tent. He's it looks better, and it's because of how, because I cut him, it means that it just fits better behind there without extra bulk behind some of those what am I trying to say? Behind some of those pieces, basically those cardstock. I couldn't think of the word. I've got another lantern that I put by the cauldron of worms, along with some other potion bottles and some more crystals. And the worms, I love the worms. I had to put them, there's one on the tent, and then I'm going to add a few more potion bottles and worms down the bottom here. I think I even put another one on the tent as well. I just love them. I just thought it made sense with the whole cauldron of worms. It's so funny. So here's my little tray full of all these extra bits that I was trying to see if I could get in there. There is a fire, like a campfire. If I'd done this on like a slimline card, which I did think about doing, but then I changed my mind and decided to do the pop-up inside pivot pop-up, whatever it's called. If I'd done a slimline card, then the campfire, along with all these creatures and that would have, it gives you more real estate because it's a longer card. It's sort of, I think, about 3.5 by 8.5, something like that. So it gives you a lot of real estate to sort of play around with where you want to put all your images and things like that, so that you could have had one lot cooking on one end of in their cauldrons, and then the other end these guys by the tent, and then have a fire in the middle. So the fire that comes from the campsite die set doesn't actually fit on this scene, any of the little scenes I've done here, so I will just keep that for something else, but it does come with that die set as well. Also in that is a little camp sign, so I added that and I made it all wonky, and the sign's all wonky. I also added one of the books in the sky, like it's, you know, possessed or something, and it's flying off. So that is it, guys. That's the whole pivot pop-up card. A witchy one for Halloween this year, and I really love it. The only other thing I would do is on the bottom inside of the card, it looks very white, so I may go back and add a bit of a grassy patch in those same green colours just to finish the inside off a bit more. So I hope you've enjoyed this, guys. I hope this was fun. This takes a lot of time when you're doing this kind of card, but it is good fun, and it's very, very cool to give to someone. So bye for now.